Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, Attorney Kim Hegwood of Your Legacy Legal Care, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and our very special guest today is Lee Mohler she's an aging and dementia life coach and co-founder of You and Me Positive Aging Programs. Good morning.
Good morning, Kim. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I appreciate it immensely because we have a lot of clients these days that are transitioning, so it's always good to get as much information as possible because it just helps them. The more, I always tell clients all the time, knowledge is power. So the more you can gain, the easier things are. And today we're going to talk about transitioning to assisted living and basically what a coach has to say. That would be you.
Uh-huh.
And so let's talk about the most common mistakes families make when they're trying to get their loved ones from home to an assisted living.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. So this is one of our favorite topics. We help our clients in a number of ways, but one of the most common requests we get from our clients is, how do I get my mom or dad or my spouse to agree? Is usually the goal, is what they come to us wanting, to move to an assisted living. And as you know, I'm sure from your work with clients, the majority of our clients are living with some sort of brain change. So most people come to us because they aren't able to reason with their parent or their spouse anymore, and they're running into some challenges related to that. So our goal is to help educate and give our families insight into what they need to do and how they need to adapt and change to meet their loved one where they are. Because when someone's living with dementia, it's just not business as usual. So to answer your question, the most common mistake families make is they approach this decision from a place of logic, not emotion. And I wish I could share a slide with you right now. I'm going to try to illustrate it as best I can. But the very first thing we teach our clients who are supporting a loved one living with dementia is that their ability to process logic and reason, which all happens in their frontal lobe, happens in ours every day, think about their own thinking, appreciate and seek insight from other people and see other people's perspectives. All of that is gone. If not all of the time, some of the time, which makes it very difficult for a family to sit down and have a logical conversation with somebody. So they go into the conversation all up here in the head, and we teach clients to stay down here in the heart space. It's the emotion, because we all have the emotion until our last breath, which is the silver lining, what we like to consider the silver lining of living with dementia, because their emotion is super big and powerful and the logic's just not there. So that's what we want to teach people, is not to do this. You can't meet up here, so you've got to come down here and meet them in the heart space. So emotion versus logic.
So let's kind of dig in a little bit because I'd really like to know more about that, because I just had an experience with a client that they want their parent to move because it's not necessarily safe, as safe as it used to be for them to live on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Parent digging heels in, nope, not moving anywhere, not doing anything. So can you give us an example of emotion versus logic? Because I come at it, I'm very logical. So I come at it very logical sometimes. And so I would really love an example. And I'm sure our client, our people listening to the podcast would as well. So could you give me kind of an example? Parent needs to move, but they're not moving. They're like, I can take care of myself. I keep my house clean. Everything's good. And so.
Okay. So, we receive examples every day. I'm going to think of a good one. Right. So what our clients will see from their parent or spouse is a resistance. And that's their primal brain kicking in. That is alive and well in all of us. So the fight or flight, sometimes parents will kind of, retreat a little bit. But when they see that resistance, we'll call it, or negative emotion, they go right into that logic and trying to explain. So what we want you to do is encourage you to do is when your parent or spouse says, "I'm not leaving. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself," recognize it for what it is. It's just resistance. So you can control your own thoughts. And that's a big thing that we teach people too, is your thoughts create your feelings 100% of the time. So when families come to us very frustrated that they're not able to meet their agenda and get them moved in, that's, we teach them to kind of be able to change their thoughts and be aware of what they're thinking. That's the first step. But your parent's going to come at you. We'll just use the parent as the example. Resisting, fighting, I'm not going. So instead of going and saying, "Mom, remember we went to the doctor last week and he said you're not able to drive anymore. So that means that I've got to leave work and be here every afternoon by 4 o'clock to help you do X, Y, and Z." We'll tell you first off, they're not able to respond, or I'm sorry, to process everything that you're saying. That's a lot of words. It's a monologue, and somebody that's living with dementia just simply can't do it. They're probably picking up on one of every 4 or 5 words that's being said, which is hard for families to understand or even believe, because they might say something with complete clarity, that very morning, or they remember something that they haven't remembered in 2 months. And so you think, wow, they must be playing me a little bit. That's what sometimes families think. So that's not the case. So changing your communication, how you approach it. So instead of all of that language, we want to teach them to approach the situation with more emotion. So the first step is connecting. There's a formula called emotional bridging, and it's connecting, anchoring, and offering. So the first step is connecting with them. "Mom, you don't want to move," because that's what mom says. "I don't want to move." "Mom, you don't want to move." And being aware of your facial expressions, because people pick up on our body language and facial expressions, especially when they're living with cognitive change. So you want to restate what they said, give her a chance to respond. And sometimes it can be awkward because it might be 10 or 15 seconds, but she's processing what you're saying. So what your mom's hearing now is, they hear me, she gets me. So the second step is you want to anchor her, give her something to anchor into. So that's basically saying, "Mom, I understand. So you don't want to move. We're going to figure this out together." That's the anchoring phase. And then the final step in the process is an offer. And that's a sincere compliment or statement that would have meaning for her. It's something that we really work with our families on recognizing, is what has meaning for the person. Were they a great parent? Did they take a lot of pride in the job that they did? Did they, were they volunteers? Like what has meaning for them? So that final step is, "Mom, I love how independent you are." So it's 3 steps. It's the connecting, anchoring, and offering. We do it for each other all day long. But when families feel like they're just met with so much resistance, and they've got all this anxiety about, "I need to get mom into the community because I don't have time to go by the house every day. I'm worried about her at night." So they're just full bore, "I'm going to get my agenda met." And so you've got to just slow things down a little bit and move out of the logic and into the heart space.
Perfect. That's what I was looking for. And so, because I think so many families don't do that. And I realized when you were talking about it, thinking back of the conversation, I probably didn't do it well either, and so this is really, really good information. So didn't mean to throw you off there, but it came up and I thought, oh, this is something we really need to know. So,
No.
so what are the elements of a successful transition?
Well, the first, kind of going back to the relationship and communication, will be your words. So we like to say our words and how we present information is our greatest magic. Because when people are really thoughtful, people with healthy brains are thoughtful about what they say, and when they say it, it changes everything. Um, so that's the first step. That's the most important element of a successful transition. And then it's breaking it down into before, during, and after, because what happens to all of us is, we can experience a sense of overwhelm. It's like, I've got to get mom into this community, or this is going to happen. This is going to happen. Catastrophic thinking. It's what our brains do. It's just, again, back to the primal brain. It's just just how it works. So we teach families to kind of slow down a little bit, think about what they're saying when they say it, and have a little bit of a plan, but be willing to move away from that plan. So that's the first step, is the words and the language. The second is staying curious instead of furious. We like that little rhyming, but it's very true. If you can get to the point that you can sit in a place of neutrality and just being curious, I wonder what mom is going to say, or dad, or my spouse will say when I do this. I wonder how they'll respond when I try this. Instead of, they're not doing what I want them to do, this is never going to happen. And then you can just see how it just kind of explodes into a bigger deal. And then you're dealing with all of this negativity and negative emotion, which, because they're living in this place of emotion and emotional intensity, that lasts a very long time. It's like the Maya Angelou comment, or not comment, quote, people may not always remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And that is so much more intense and greater when somebody's living with dementia. That is absolutely the truth. So, so your words, staying curious, and then finally, not looking at it as a kind of one and done. They're in the community. You've been able to do that, get them into the community, and then, okay, my job's done. It actually isn't. You can pat yourself on the back, you did it. But, we want to honor the person and respect the person that's made this life transition, and be there for them and show up for them in a very different way. Your role changes. You're a care manager of sorts, and there's more that goes into that. But being in relationship with the community that you've chosen, or that they've helped you choose, that's a whole other podcast we could talk about. But but knowing how to be in relationship and in collaboration with the community that they move into. And it's a different role and a different experience, but we teach our families how to advocate for their loved one once they're in the building.
Well, one of the things I suggested, to this particular client, in the parent was, you should go look with your child, go visit some, just go visit some, go check them out, so that if the time does come that you have to go, you have at least said, I like this place best. So if it came down to it, should families include their loved ones in the process?
It depends. Robin, my colleague, and I spent 10 years in working in senior living, and we've seen it done a number of ways. With our knowledge and understanding of dementia and how the different types of dementia affect brain function and cognition and how they see their world, I would say sometimes that's a good idea, and sometimes it's not. And it just really, it depends. Do you want to give me maybe an example of something that you've seen or experienced, and I can maybe give some insight into a particular situation?
No, I was just thinking, I don't think this client, has dementia. They're getting older, um,
Okay.
definitely. And,
Okay. Oh,
but, so I know with clients that, the dementia is already kind of, almost, I hate to use the word full blown, but, when it gets to the point of that, then we don't recommend that, that the families take, the parents to to look.
Right.
You basically make that, decision. And so,
Agree. Yes.
but I think with family members that have, that still have, some good cognitive abilities, having them help with the transition makes it easier. And
Yes.
so,
I would agree. And I would say, 9 times out of 10, the parent or spouse that needs assisted living isn't coming forward and saying, I need assisted living. I'm ready for this. You know, so again, back to even if there's no significant brain change, there's normal aging that's taken place. And so a lot of, to point out your specific example, to use that specific example, if they haven't been diagnosed with any form of dementia, but we know that normal aging changes things. If you're going to take them with you, again, using your words and your language, and then keeping it very simple and not going to look at 5, 6 communities, but saying, Mom, I found 2 places I would love for you to see. And not even necessarily using the phrase assisted living. Semantics matter. Most of us remember, I know my grandparents and other family members had stints in skilled nursing facilities, nursing homes. That's what sometimes we've seen families will immediately go to. The older generation is, oh my gosh, I'm not moving into a nursing home. But we know that assisted livings are very different today than they were 30 years ago.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, maybe narrowing it down to 2, I think is a good way to do it. And then taking them on shorter visits, because a marketing director's job in a community is to show all of the amazing aspects of the community. And we did that, and we believed in what we were offering families. But you can overwhelm the person with information that they don't necessarily need to be sold on something. It's just, it's kind of just scaling it back and really getting back into, like I said earlier, the emotion, using fewer words, and reducing the number of options because it's just overwhelming and people can't make a decision. So I think it's a. Oh, go ahead, Kim. You were going to say something.
No, I was just going to ask, and so because I didn't want to make sure that our listeners got some more good information. But how does an assisted living transition coaching work? So, like, if someone calls you, how does that work?
So all of our sessions are via Zoom. We've been working now in this space for about 3 years. So we started during COVID, which actually was advantageous because people were already kind of skilled up on how to use Zoom. And so most our clients are, I'd say, age 55 up to 75. And they purchase our assisted living transitions package. And then we do 3 1-hour sessions via Zoom that they schedule based on our availability. And we help them focus in those 3 sessions on the before, what to do and say before, during, and after, because it's all important. And our goal is that they are able to stay in or be in relationship with their parent or spouse, in a way that supports them emotionally, and that we don't run into this, some of the negativity that and stress and duress of transitions. So,
Perfect. And so, all right. So, how does somebody find you?
so we are on the World Wide Web, as they say. We're at youandmeaging.com is our website. We are currently offering complimentary consultations, and on our homepage, you can click on the link and book your complimentary consult. And during that call, or that session, we give people 1 or 2 concepts that they can take and put into immediate practice in terms of how they approach their parent or spouse, just how they are in relationship with them given the task at hand. So they can book a complimentary consultation, and then they can follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well. We post some helpful tips. We have a blog on our website. So there's a way for people to stay in connection with us if they're not quite ready to do something.
All right, telephone number?
Our telephone number is 404-965-4142.
Perfect. Thanks so much for Lee for being on the show today. Such good information, and I appreciate you answering the the curveball I threw out at you, because I think that was really important for people to know. So thanks so much. We look forward to having you on the show again.
Thank you, Kim.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcasts as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.